Introducing our guest speaker. Alex is the Treatment Facilities Director for MSD. He's also a member of the International Service Committee and a Paul Harris Fellow. Please welcome Alex to the podium.
Thank you, President Julie. I'm not sure why my video isn't showing right now. I was just off a Teams call where it did show. So I was handed a script that I could use for introducing Tony Parrott, and I'll be straying way off of that. And I'm sure my MSD brethren are all squirming nervously in their chairs right now. Let me see, I might be able to start my video now. There we go. I'll start with the script though. Tony Parrott, actually last month was his 5th year anniversary with MSD. He's the executive director. And so he's providing all of the leadership for not only our organization, but also in the One Water initiative that MSD has with the water company. Our MSD provides wastewater collection and treatment, flood protection, stormwater services, and we have about 850,000 customers. And also recently, we've added 6,000 more customers from Oldham County. And stay tuned for, I guess, more news along those directions in the future. And he is appointed by the mayor. And now to stray away from the script, when I first heard 5 years ago plus during the summer of 2015 that Tony Parrott was going to be the executive director, anybody in our business knows the name Tony Parrott. I mean, he's a major player nationally on many committees, many boards, in the Water Environment Federation and in the Association of Clean Water Agencies. So it was a big deal. My fear was, well, here's this guy coming in, all these credentials, is he's just going to sit back on his laurels and just live off of his reputation. Well, the answer is no. He came in and had quite a big agenda. And I know some of the things we're seeing in our community right now, equity issues. MSD started equity initiatives, I know, over 2 years ago. This has been something that's been high on his priority list, so it's nothing new to us. We also have a community benefits initiative, and that is we have a lot of construction here. We spend a lot of money. We wanted to make sure the benefits of that, not only the projects themselves, but the economic benefits came back to the community at large. So he's put together quite a few pretty significant initiatives in this time that he's been here. And I know one of them that I'm really makes me excited to get up and go to work every morning is he really wants to go forward and become a utility of the future. And that's not just putting together a paperwork checklist and doing all that. There's going to be a lot of work to get there. And it's going to take years. And I've sort of committed to him, even though I just turned 69, that yes, I'll go ahead and I'll work several more years just to keep going, because I'm really excited about the way MSD is going right now. And before I turn it over to him, because of the project that he's going to be delivering, I did want to make sure I introduced Jacob Mathis, who was the project manager for that project, the Big Tunnel project. He's a professional engineer and licensed in Indiana and Kentucky, 17 years experience, and he's a Purdue grad. And the reason I like that, and I'm not a Purdue grad, but almost the entire engineering department at MSD are U of L speed school grads. So those of us who are not, we really embrace the others who are not part of that program. We don't want the utility to get too inbred on an engineering basis. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to James Anthony Tony Parrott.
Thank you, Alex, for such a great introduction. And I truly appreciate you and your expertise, because it means so much to the organization, and so excited that you've elected not to retire and continue to work towards changing what we do here at MSD. And I'll have your check when you get back after that great introduction. So thank you. I want to thank the Rotary. I mean, obviously, MSD is very involved and very active in our community and in our city. And I think it's always good that we get a chance to talk about what we're doing and how it's impacting our city. And the Rotary is such a great venue, and this is actually my second time since I've been in Louisville to have the opportunity to speak. So I want to thank the Rotary. And I also want to recognize one of your fellow Rotarians who is on our MSD board, Ms. Cindy Caudill. Cindy has been on our board probably 9 years or more, and has recently served as our past chair and has been very instrumental in a lot of the innovative and the great things that we're accomplishing, particularly in the last 5 years. So Cindy Caudill, we want to thank you for all you do for MSD. I'm here to talk to you about a project that you probably may have heard of, but you probably haven't seen. It's our waterway protection tunnel. And I'm going to try to share my screen, so just bear with me 1 second and see what we can do here. Wait a second. Wait a second. One second. I'm gonna need some assistance, sir. 1 second. We'll get it up.
No worries, Tony. I gotta click those two buttons. You didn't ask. You gotta do it that way because it won't show. Yeah, we don't. Click on share screen. As he's getting that together, I just want everyone to know we've already done a run through, but sometimes things get more complicated when there's lots more people on a call. So just to let everyone know, thank you.
All right, can you see my screen now?
Looks great.
1 second. Can you see it now? All righty. So anyway, the waterway protection tunnel is a real innovative approach to reduce pollution into our waterways. And it is a project that is probably Louisville residents will never see the project that we're working on. But it is a project that definitely we will benefit from in big ways for many generations to come. The protection tunnel is a project that is happening 18 stories underground. It is 4 miles long, 20 feet in diameter, and it's going to take us about 3 years. We're about a year and a half in to really get it completed. The value of the tunnel is that once it's completed, we will be able to capture and store on a typical rainfall year, 439 million gallons of pollution will be kept out of the Beargrass Creek and the Ohio River waterways. It is a project that is about a $200 million project, and it is those are big numbers. We recognize that, and when you think about the numbers, 200 feet deep is 18 stories underground. And this is just a snapshot of the Aegon building. I think it's now called the 400 West Market building. But 18 stories underground, if you take that and flip it over, we're actually working 18 stories and 200 or so feet underground on this project. 4 miles long. It begins at 12th and Rowan Street, and it ends at Grinstead Drive at Lexington Road. So there's a 4-mile alignment, and that is shown here on the red line on this particular map. And it is a project that we kicked off with a groundbreaking, and the benefit again is that it will allow us to reduce the amount of gallons of pollution that are entering our waterways. And collectively, the tunnel is something that is broader than what it looks like. It's really a piece of a large project or a large responsibility that MSD has, and that is because of combined sewer overflows. During the period of high rains or heavy rains in our community, combined sewer overflows actually release and overflow into local waterways, which can harm wildlife and plants and potentially expose people to bacteria and pathogens in our communities. And so some of you may not have heard of combined sewer overflows, but essentially, when you look at this graphic here, over 200 years ago, they were designed basically to capture and transport both stormwater and normal flow from our residents and our businesses. And during periods of heavy rain, that combined sewer systems can become full with stormwater and sewage. And back then, the state-of-art design is that they were designed to overflow when they got full. And so that was advanced wastewater technologies in the late 19th and 20th centuries. Since then, we've had a lot of changes in the regulations and the EPA requirements that are requiring us to reduce the amount of overflows that are getting or escaping from those combined sewer systems. In our city, we have a number of combined sewer locations. This map just kind of gives you a snapshot of most of them, which are inside the Waterston or the loop there, and our downtown district and downtown neighborhoods and the West End. So it is very important that we look at how we can accomplish the requirements under the consent decree that we entered into in 2005 with US EPA, which basically commits MSD to greatly reduce combined sewer overflows and eliminate sanitary sewer overflows in our system. Our current estimate is that it's going to be about a $1.2 billion program for stormwater and drainage to meet the requirement. And our current prescribed deadline is 2024. I do want to mention that even though we've been under this consent decree, we still have a lot of other challenges in our system with aging infrastructure and with also regulatory changes. And of course, about 3-4 years ago, we kind of rolled out our 20-year critical repair and reinvestment plan that highlights all the things that we need to address from an infrastructure perspective. So we're continuing our discussions with the regulators to figure out how we can address the priorities and how we can do work given the budget constraints that we do have. And so that 2024 deadline may have to be extended. But the consent decree program so far, we have done a lot of work to reduce overflows. And this is just a snapshot of what we call a storage basin or a CSO basin. They are designed to capture rainwater and sewage during a rain event. And once that rain event subsides, we will be able to pump that into our treatment system to make sure that we're treating that wastewater and stormwater so that we're not overflowing into streams. And again, this is just another snapshot of a basin that we've built. And these are huge basins, and they are very, very invasive in communities and in projects, and so in areas. So we, even though we've done a number of these large basins, you can kind of see we have 14 overflow reduction facilities, which has about 266 million gallons of storage. The waterway protection tunnel adds another 55 million gallons of storage capacity. So before the consent decree work began, on a typical rain year, we were seeing about 6.5 billion gallons of overflow into our local rivers and streams. And so our work to date, including the basins and the tunnel, will reduce that overflow in a typical rain year to approximately 660 million gallons. And we have additional planned work that will reduce that number even further. So as you can see, a significant benefit to the environment. So let's talk about the tunnel. The underground innovation that this project brings, basically the tunnel will capture overflows from 25 combined sewer overflow locations in our city. And you can kind of see that this is kind of highlighted on the map in orange. One of the things that we learned from all of the large storage basins that we built, we still had 4 more basins to build to be able to meet the requirements under the consent decree for these 25 CSOs and neighborhoods. So as we studied it more, we determined that tunneling technology and equipment had become more readily available and could actually replace those 4 basins. And so if you look at the route of the tunnel, you can see if we could keep construction underground, it would be less invasive and less impacted to the communities that are depicted on this map. So moving to a tunnel technology is something that is a win-win, not only for MSD, but for the community and for the environment. So the tunnel starts really, when you think about going 200 feet down, you got to have what we call a entry shaft and a retrieval shaft at the end of the project 4 miles down the road. And so our entry shaft is located at 12th and Rowan Streets, and that was dug first. The yellow cage you see in this is where the center and is actually the elevator that our crew members take every day to access the tunnel job site. Once we're there, our crews at the base of the working shaft, 200 feet beneath the surface, had to do a lot of what we call horizontal excavation work and a lot of what we call drilling and blasting. And once we created enough room and excavated there, we were able to bring the real heavy equipment in. This is just a schematic of the boring machine that is what we call Bumblebee. Talk about that in a second. But the Bumblebee is more than a length of a football field, weighs 750,000 pounds, and moves with 3.5 million pounds of thrust. So that's a large machine. If you can imagine trying to get that assembled, this kind of gives you the snapshot of what that looks down into the entry shaft way and how we had to bring that in and get it assembled before we could start our tunneling project. Bumblebee, this is the boring head. We had an opportunity to do sort of a groundbreaking on this project, and I do know that Councilmember Bill Hollander, and Barbara Sexton-Smith were also at that groundbreaking, and we appreciate the support that they have shown for this project. But we named the cutterhead Bumblebee. We had an employee contest to name it, and our employee Mike Fitzner suggested the name in honor of Muhammad Ali because of the fact that this is going to be a big project that's going to float like a butterfly but sting like a bee. And that's what Bumblebee is designed to do, work very hard and be very effective. And since it's underground, you're really not going to see it. Keeping track of the work, the public has been able to track Bumblebee along the 4-mile journey over the past couple of years, and by checking our website tracker. And just last week, Bumblebee reached a very exciting milestone at Grinstead Drive in Lexington as she broke through the tunnel terminus. And I think that is where the retrieval shaft is. Again, another shaft that is 200 feet underground, where the Bumblebee boring head will be breaking through. And I think what we have here is a video that will show you the moment of breakthrough. You will notice on these screens where there are green marks, that is sort of the survey where this thing was supposed to come through. And I'm proud to say that after 4 miles of boring, this came really in on point. And so that was just an excellent, excellent approach. So let's watch this video. So this kind of shows you, once it was all the way through, what the boring machine really looks like at the bottom of the retrieval shaft. You see a person in the picture there that kind of gives you the magnitude of the size of that boring machine. And as I mentioned before, years of planning and engineering went into this moment to have the Bumblebee break through. And Jacob Mathis, our project engineer, just did a phenomenal job. And all of our MSD inspectors and the contractors that worked on the job, just a remarkable project for us. The other thing that I want to point out is with a large infrastructure project, we were able to have created 200 jobs with the construction of this project. And MSD has an initiative, as Alex mentioned earlier, on how not only we can do projects, but how we can be an economic boon by creating jobs and also giving an opportunity for local labor and also economic inclusion on all the construction projects that we do. So now that the Bumblebee has broken through, what is next? Now we have to actually disassemble that large boring machine. Again, the length of a football field and a lot of material. And there's a number of tractor trailers that are necessary to be able to transport that out of there. Once we disassemble and remove the tunnel and the conveyor belts, we will be able to start to line the interior of the tunnel, which with a 12-inch thick concrete. And that will continue over the next few months. We think that by this time next year, we'll be operational and fully complete by January of 2022. So an enormous project. And when we are done, there are a lot of other things that we try to do is make sure that whenever we're doing work, we're leaving amenities. So when our work is complete, we're excited to turn our 2 above ground job sites over to the community. At the tunnel's terminus at Lexington and Grinstead, we will convert a portion of this area to a new public space. that will serve as a trailhead for the popular Beargrass Creek walking and biking trail. At 12th and Rowan, where the entry shaft was, that job site will be turned over to Waterfront Development Corp for phase 4 of the water park. And so again, we're very excited about that. Also down at the 12th and Rowan site, there is a large pump station that, as you can see, has been designed to kind of fit into a future park-like setting that will be able to pump the tunnel when it is full. We have to be able to pump it after the rainstorm subsides. We need to be able to pump that into our sewer system down to our Morris Foreman treatment plant to be able to treat the wastewater and the stormwater. And then finally, once we are completed with all the work, this is sort of the rendering of what this may look like at 12th and Rowan. Exciting westward expansion of Waterfront Park and award-winning green space for this city, for the front yard of our city. So again, this project, even though it's been underground, it is something that is going to be so impactful, not only to our mission at MSD, but also to make sure that we are benefiting the community with our public amenities and assets. And so as the work continues, we have what we call Tunnel Tuesdays. Folks can get updates on our website. And when it's all said and done, we're excited to live up to Muhammad Ali's quote with our project and be very effective and efficient while being also unnoticed underground. So with that, that is sort of the update on that. And I'm ready for any questions.
Okay, wonderful. We have several. So let me see here. Sorry about that. Okay. Steve Rungwith wanted to ask, at the depth of the tunnel, how much variation in rock and soil did Bumblebee see?
So I, again, have Jacob Mathis, who is our project engineer, available. Jacob, you want to address that?
Yes. Okay. Can everybody hear me?
Sure.
Okay. The tunnel itself being 200 feet deep, we encountered about 9 different formations of rock. Most of those were encountered in the vertical shafts as we went down from the surface. But we were primarily in probably 4 different types of rock as we went horizontally across the city. Most of those being a hard limestone, approximately 20,000 pounds per square inch of strength of that rock.
Wow. Why did the tunnel have to be so deep? Asked Steve Eggers.
If I heard you, the question is, why does the tunnel have to be so deep?
Right.
Okay. The reason for the depth of the tunnel is in tunneling projects, your goal is to be approximately 2 tunnel diameters below the lowest point of your rock formation. And it just so happens to be that the lowest rock formation across our alignment is in the area of Eagle Slug Field, where rock is about 150 feet below the surface. So our tunnel being 20 feet in diameter would be about 40 feet below that low point, which puts us at 190 feet. Due to some other formations of rock, such as Waldron Shale, that we were encountering that would have been across the tunnel crown at one point near the beginning, we dropped an extra 10 feet to be below that. That way we had a nice strong rock to excavate through.
Okay. And this one's probably for you, Tony. How many years will this project suffice into the future? And do you anticipate when the community grows, we will lengthen the tunnel or build a new one?
I think this is obviously a project that is designed to last. Probably the life of this asset is going to be 60 years or more. And we hope that it's more. We have obviously, with tunnel technology, there may be opportunities in the future, whether it's further to the east in the watershed or whether it's some other direction to be able to do additional tunneling in the future. Quite honestly, I think maybe if we would have taken this approach 10 years ago, we probably could have had some of the previous basins that have been installed would not have been necessary. We could have used more tunneling technology to make sure that we were doing this underground. But you know, as regulations change and evolve over the next decade or so, there's probably going to be more focus on what we are doing at our treatment facilities, particularly Morris Forman, which is the largest and the oldest treatment facility in the state of Kentucky. And so as we start to look at what we're doing at Morris Forman, that there may be opportunities for additional tunnel approaches or tunnel technology in the future.
Thank you. Here's a question from Todd Lanham. Once you've finished using it, is the plan to sell Bumblebee, and how much of the initial cost do you think you could recoup?
Jacob, you want to answer that?
Everybody hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Bumblebee is not owned by MSD. Bumblebee is owned by the contractor, which is a joint venture, JF Shea out of Walnut, California, and Trailer Brothers out of Evansville, Indiana. Together, they own that machine. That machine was originally built in 1977, and we are the 6th project that has been used on. So the contractor will take it from Louisville back to its shop in Pennsylvania, where it will either sit until it's needed or go through a rebuild process for its next project.
Thank you. And this question asks, well, so what happened to all the rock and dirt that was removed from the tunnel?
The rock that was removed was actually sent over to a quarry in southern Indiana, where they crushed it and reused it for other purposes. So it could be in a road base somewhere or a concrete mix within the city.
Okay. This is from Tracy Holiday. Does this project impact the areas that flood during heavy rain?
This project itself is for combined sewer overflow reduction. It is not a flood mitigation project. It will have some minor impact by taking the water into the tunnel instead of the local waterway, but it will not have a significant reduction in, I guess, flooding in certain areas.
I will add, though, that with the flooding, we do have, I mentioned earlier, our critical repair and reinvestment plan that stretches out over the next 20 years. There is a specific focus on how we can do projects that will enhance stormwater and drainage, and also projects that will not only enhance our existing flood protection system, but how we can reduce flooding in neighborhoods that are really flood prone today. But you know, those projects, that's a 20-year plan. And right now, you know, we are obligated to complete some of the consent decree work before we're able to do that. And without additional funding, we're very limited on what we can do and how fast we can do it.
Thank you. This is from David Dunn. He asked about your safety record during construction of the tunnel.
The contractor has a very good safety record on this project. There's a lot of safety briefings every morning, just a lot of updates on what's going on, a lot of precautions that have taken place since the beginning of the project. Other than minor injuries, such as smashed fingers or small cuts that require a couple stitches, there's been nothing major to report for this project.
It's pretty significant considering what you're doing. This is from Rick Harned. Could you talk about the stream bed restoration work going on beside Lexington Road, east of the tunnel terminus, and along Grinstead Drive? How long will that be underway, and what will be the result?
Tony, do you have? That project, I'm not involved with that one, but my understanding of that project is that it is being done to kind of, I guess, bring that area back to its native look and feel by removing some invasive species, adding some settling areas where water depths vary. That way we can accommodate aquatic life in that area and kind of revitalize the stream. Project duration, I'm not aware of since I'm not involved in it.
Tony, I also want to ask, I work down on Main Street, and of course, there's a lot of work going on downtown in the center of our city. Is that also MSD doing improvements there as well?
Well, you know, a lot of the work that may be going on in Main Street, you know, there's, as you may recall, 2 years ago, we had a major renovation project of a sewer that ran down the middle of Main Street. And that is some of the aging infrastructure I mentioned earlier that, you know, is over 200 years old, and it's literally collapsing under the streets. And so, you know, there's Main Street. We're doing work now at 7th and Main, for example, right now that has the road closed. That is a emergency repair because of a failure in the sewer there. We are currently mobilizing to address another failure in our critical assets on Broadway, which will be a very impactful project between Brook and Hancock along Broadway for the next several months. Last week, we had another failure at on Jefferson Street between Brook and Hancock. So we've talked about the critical need in the aging infrastructure, and most of the work that we're doing, particularly in the downtown district, is responding to those emergency failures that we're continuing to see and continuing to have, and that are just having large impacts on the downtown area. But it is a public health and safety issue that we must address.
Yes, very much so. Well, I just want to thank you so much for being here today, Tony, and thank you and your team. You know, it's wonderful to hear about this critical infrastructure and investment right here in our community. So thank you for your leadership. And also to Rotarian Cindy, thank you for your service and serving on the board, and for your commitment as well. So thank you so very much. We appreciate it,
Thank
Tony.
you. Thank you for having us.
Yes. Well, we're going to transition now to talk about the Community Foundation of Louisville and our partnership with them. You know, earlier this year, as the pandemic struck, the Community Foundation went into quick action and established the One Louisville COVID-19 Response Fund. The Rotary Club of Louisville answered the call, and we made a $25,000 donation to the effort. And I'm pleased that Tricia Finnegan, Senior Vice President with the Community Foundation, is here with us today to give us an update about One Louisville COVID-19 Response Fund, its impact for individuals and organizations, especially those who have been most in need during this exceptional time. So please welcome Tricia.
Julie, thank you so much for having me. Rotarians, it's a pleasure to be with you today. And we certainly are grateful for the significant contribution that you chose to make to your community through the One Louisville Fund. I am happy to be with you, and go ahead and pull up a slide that'll take you through some of the impact that you helped us to achieve. So let me pull that up now. And I want to share with you all, as I pull this through, that the contributions that were made through, excuse me, I think I'm sharing the wrong thing. Let me just make sure I've got it here. Here we go. It's fun to be able to watch these presentations. It's totally different to do them. And so I appreciate you bearing with me as I get this loaded for you. So really what we want to let you know is what you made possible and who joined you in making that possible. So this was about all of us coming together and stepping forward for our community. For those of you on the call that I know, it's a pleasure to see you or see your name again. For those of you who don't know me, it is a pleasure to be with you. And I am on staff at the Community Foundation, as Julie shared. But I'm presenting really on behalf of all of the folks that came together to make this possible. So what did you make possible? $10.9 million were contributed to this fund, and $10.9 million have now been distributed. These numbers, I'll note for today, are as of the last day of August. And so I will give you a teaser that we've since crossed the $11 million mark, but those numbers are still in process. And so what we can say is our community came together from March of this year. We stood the fund up on the 16th of March, right as COVID was announced and the impact was starting to be felt across our community. And we are still receiving even some last trickles of contributions now. And so every dollar that comes through, we are making sure gets out to our community. That $10.9 million was contributed by over 1,700 individual gifts. Some of those gifts were as small as $10 and some were as large as $1 million. Obviously, as Julie mentioned, you all contributed $25,000, which is significant. That distribution then went out into community, to nonprofits that were supporting individuals through our community, and to Louisville Metro government who were supporting individuals. And I'm going to show you some of the impact of those grants. So 147,000 meals were served, and deliveries of groceries, basic needs to people who needed them. As shared, this support was all directed at individuals in our community who had the highest risk of physical, mental, or economic impacts due to COVID. And so basic needs and meeting those basic needs was a critical function of the fund. There were also several nonprofit partners, which, as Rotarians know well, we rely on these nonprofit partners to keep our community strong year over year. And we had over 500 nonprofit partners that had staff that they were able to retain both now and through the pandemic, so that they can continue to serve the community that we all love. I also have, because numbers aren't everything, we also have a few quotes in here from community partners who were supported. Family Scholar House, that I know many of you know and love, shared that the support allowed them to maintain their staff and resources and increase their outreach to those most vulnerable. They specifically provided food, diapers, and supplies, as well as coaching, advocacy, and connection to long-term solutions that alleviate poverty and economic vulnerability. So that's allowing both immediate needs and helping people make sure that they're stable moving forward. Another example is through Black CDC, who stood up the very first free COVID testing site in West Louisville. So that was another example of a basic need that was met through the fund. Moving on here, a couple more numbers for you. There were $125,000 worth of computers, equipment, telehealth, remote learning, technology tools that were provided through the fund. And then there was $3.4 million of direct cash assistance that was provided to individuals and households through Louisville Metro. That $3.4 million supported more than 3,000 households across our community. Again, impact in a more story base here, 7 county services, and they said that they're responding to increased levels of anxiety, depression, fear, and substance abuse, and that the funds from One Louisville help 7 county services cover the technology and upgrades necessary to continue to provide crucial mental and behavioral health services through the pandemic. And again, all of that technology will last them well beyond these days. Last example I'll lift is one from Senior Care Experts that shared with us that they were able to provide more home delivered meals and medication to isolated and homebound seniors throughout the pandemic. For those of you who want to go a little bit deeper, I wanted to provide an overview chart of some of the characteristics of individuals that were supported. So some organizations may serve many different types of individuals: low income, youth, seniors. And so we wanted you to be able to see which of our neighbors your dollars supported. The vast majority of grants, almost 85–90% of the grants, supported individuals who are low income. You can see that more than 75% of our grants supported children and youth. You can go down that list to see homeless and housing unstable community members, those living with a disability, senior citizens, etc. We wanted you to definitely know which of your neighbors your grant dollars supported. So we want to thank you for your support. We want to thank you for making the support to so many people in our community possible. And I certainly wanted to save some time, Julie, for any last couple questions that folks might lift, or anything that people might want to know that maybe wasn't in the slide.
Tricia, I'll go ahead and kick it off. In terms of the fund, will you continue to attract dollars and continue to serve people in need as this crisis, unfortunately, is still very much with us?
Julie, it's a great question. You know, we definitely don't want to put out the impression that the crisis is over, because unfortunately we know that it is not. However, really the One Louisville Fund was designed to be emergency support And what we know off of many years of doing emergency support is it's really important for that to have a start and an end, so that folks that are doing work like Metro United Way and so many of our partners at Dare to Care and others, that they can, you know, sort of get back to their regular fundraising, and we don't want to be a barrier to folks. And so emergency support is best served by standing something up, getting some funds in and out, and then, if you will, sort of getting out of the way for regular work to take place. And so we do have a few gifts coming in, but we've really stopped raising the bulk of the funds at this point.
Right. Okay, great. Do any Rotarians have a question? You can just unmute yourself and ask Tricia a question. Well, I do want to thank you for, you know, just going ahead and creating the fund, and you didn't waste any time. And I know it's really made an impact on so many folks, and we're really proud to have been a partner with you, Tricia, and I appreciate the Community Foundation for so many things that you do throughout the year.
Well, we are very, very grateful. Julie, thank you for having us. I'd like to do a little hello to a board member, Susan Zepeda, who's on the line, active Rotarian, and also just to say that the real success of the One Louisville Fund was the fact that we had support and partnership. We had meetings every single day. We did work with Louisville Metro government, all of the foundations in town, as well as the nonprofit partners, businesses, and individual philanthropists. And so the thing that made One Louisville Fund special really was the sense of not one person or organization doing this, but all of us coming together. And so for Rotarians, I just want to thank you again for your support in joining us, and to let you know that we're really proud that we were able to be a good partner to you at this time.
Yes. Thank you, Tricia.
Thank you.
Rotarians, as we close out the meeting, I just want to make sure that everyone knows that if you miss a meeting, you can go on the Rotary website. And if you go to the About Rotary tab, you tap in there, and then from there a tab will come out, and it's meetings/speakers. So every speaker we've had is there through our YouTube channel. So I invite you to go back, and there we've had some wonderful speakers, and you can go back and watch anyone that's been with us really for the last couple of years. So I invite you to do that. Also, I want to remind those that are interested in Rotary to stay on the line for our What is Rotary session. And next week's featured speaker is Secretary of State Michael Adams. Our pre-meeting will also be Rotarian John Walczak with Louisville Zoo. So please invite potential members to join with us, get their information to Alyssa, and she'll send an invitation to them. And we just so appreciate being with you together. Be well. This meeting is adjourned.